Welcome to this tutorial on mixing and mastering in Soundtrack Pro. So we've recorded some audio, and there are other tutorials that teach you how to set up the inputs correctly for recording, so we're not going to cover that. But we are going to cover changing your levels. Due to you recording digital audio, you always have to record below 0 decibels, because if you go over it's going to clip. So it's going to be somewhere in this area here down. And we want on our output levels to get the meters up to 0 decibels or line level for delivering content to, let's say, a radio station, or if you're putting it on any audio device, audio playback device, iPods, YouTube, computers, whatever it may be. So always want to be at 0 decibels. So to do that, because if we play this back, this is
This device I just got to help me with my business.
How do you use it for your business?
Well, with its internet capability,
we're metering somewhere around -12. So a quick way to get your levels closer to line level. And again, they're down below because if you record them too loud, it'll clip. So we want to record them slightly lower than 0, but we need to get them up in our mixing and mastering. So here we'll select the level, or select a clip, and this cannot be done across multiple clips. Process, normalize, it's grayed out. So you have to do one at a time, select the clip, process, and then normalize. And the key command is Command L. So I'll click it once. And this window comes up. You'll see that the highest that this track gets, it looks like there's a peak right here at the end, that longer squiggly line. It gets up to -8 on our meters, so somewhere around here. And it's going to normalize to 0 decibels and bring it up to 0 by adding this amount of gain, 8.5647 decibels. So we're going to say OK, and if you look in the background here, you're going to watch and see this track grow. So this, you see a larger waveform. If I zoom in, you can see it's bigger than the tracks around it. If I play across, you'll watch the meters while I'm playing.
With my business.
How do you use it for your business?
Well, with its internet capability, long-lasting battery,
now we're getting closer to 0 decibels up here. So that's normalizing. You're going to want to do that to any track that you've recorded, because it's always going to be, again, below 0 decibels so it doesn't clip. Audio tracks that you've picked out of Soundtrack Pro's search, like sound effects, or let's say a song. Let's say we wanted to put some music to this now. We'll grab.
Tons of useful.
If you look at your metering here, it's already been mastered. It's all the way up to 0 decibels. So I'm going to grab this and drag this up to the track. And I'm going to zoom out, Shift Z is zooming all the way out. And I actually overwrote something, so I won't bring it there. I'll bring it down here. And this we want it to be exactly 30 seconds long. So if I type in here, 30 seconds. The time bar's here. If I blade cut right on that 30-second mark and delete the rest, zoom in, I can do a quick fade out here. So 2 ways to fade out. If you come to the clip edge, there's an overlay. Clip envelope icon. The tooltip changes from trim to clip envelope, and here is a fade out. So if we play that, it's one way. Or you can go to the side of any of your tracks and bring up the envelope, clip envelopes. So if I double click, and this is, you have to be precise, on the volume line, this line here, it'll add a keyframe. And if I double click later in time, add a second keyframe, I can now ramp out the audio levels similar to what I just had. And this can be done on any track. So if you needed the volumes to go up or down, here it looks like there's already been some clip envelope done on this. So Shift Z zooms all the way out. I'll delete the clip at the end here, and I'm going to go through and Command L to normalize each of these. It's important to cut your tracks so that you get rid of any extraneous noise before you do your normalizing, because if you, let's say, bump the microphone or have a really loud noise within the track, it'll normalize to that loudest noise. So I mean, if it goes all the way up to 0, then it'll say, all right, you're already at 0, there is going to be no gain added. Also note that these are different because of that fact. You know, it's looking for the highest. So if they get too varied, like that was negative 11, this is negative 9. You've added 11 decibels on one clip and then 9 on the other. You may be able to hear it, so sometimes normalizing is not the best way to bring up all your levels. So Command L. This is bringing up 20. So here's an example. Let's listen.
Technology to my business.
I'm going to mute this track because it's not mixed down yet.
21st century technology to my business.
Can I see that?
The games are great to.
And that actually wasn't too bad. We do want that to be up in level. So Command L, keep going across. Command L, Command L. This one is barely going up at all. Okay, so now all of our voiceover track has been normalized. Home, spacebar.
Hey, look at my amazing new iPad.
What's an iPad?
And we're metering close to 0 decibels now, or line level. That's where you want to mix to. I'll turn my music back on and turn the volume overall down a couple decibels. So we have a slider here, and we also have a slider down below that you're going to see is doing a similar thing.
This device I just got to help me with my business.
So the goal here is to mix the music so it supports the voiceover and doesn't step on it so that you can't hear the message. So right about there.
How do you use it for your business?
Well, with its internet capability, long-lasting battery, and tons of useful apps, presentations are so much easier.
How do your clients feel about this?
Okay, that's getting pretty close. So I'm going to zoom out Command minus so we can see the whole thing. And make sure I have a fade out at the end working.
Store right down the street, or you can visit apple.com. Hey, look at
And then I don't want this fade out on the voiceover. I want to be able to hear it all the way out.
There's an Apple store right down the street, or you can visit apple.com. Hey, look at
Okay, so now that this is completely mixed, we need to master it. So it's getting close to 0, but it's not fully at 0 the whole time. We're going to make it a little bit louder by using the submix. All of the tracks bus or submix into a single channel. And this channel can be calibrated for surround sound or stereo. We're currently, by default, in surround sound. Pretty much everything we do is always going to be stereo. There's rarely, I've yet to mix and surround for a project that I put to, let's say, YouTube. So I'm going to get rid of that and go to stereo. And it's important to note that if you're trying to create an MP3 file, it has to be stereo. It cannot be surround sound. So we're in stereo, and all of our tracks are going out to submix 1, coming into submix 1, and then out 1 and 2, which goes to master, and that's what we're seeing on our metering here. So we have it currently set up. If I was to export, it would sound pretty good, but I'm gonna master this by putting a compressor here. So in the effects tab, we're gonna go into the dynamics and go to compression. And make sure we're not selecting track 1. I want to select the submix. So if I click, you see highlights there. You'll see submix now over here. And I'm going to hit the plus button. And now compressor has been added to the track. And you see it up here. So I'll bring it over here so we can see what we're doing with our levels and on our track. So now, this is going to affect the overall level or dynamics of this track. So what we have going on here is, if I play it back,
my amazing new iPad.
What's an iPad?
It's compressing, it's reducing the gain of everything above negative 20 decibels on our meter. So this is kind of incorrectly calibrated. So if the level goes above 20 decibels over here, it's going to drop the gain by a ratio of 2 to 1, or cut it in half. So anything above negative 20, it's going to push down. I'm going to turn this up. Play back.
This device I just got to help me with my.
Here we're definitely compressing less. I'm also going to turn on a limiter. Now a limiter is like a brick wall. It won't allow anything beyond 0 decibels to pass if you have it set that way. So now that it's turned on, if this yellow light goes on, it means it's limiting and it's not allowing it to pass 0 decibels. So here we've done some basic level control. So everything that gets up to negative 2 on the meters now, somewhere up here, and well, I'll drag it down a little bit further, negative 4, let's say, on the meters. It's going to be compressed by this ratio. This has to do with the time of compression. So as soon as it passes that negative 4 on the meter, so when it goes above, it says, oh, immediately, or 0 milliseconds, I'm going to attack and reduce the gain. And then after that falls beneath the threshold, like let's say it goes a little quieter, it takes this long before the compressor stops what it's doing. So these settings aren't super critical for when you're mixing voiceover. They have a lot more to do when you get into mixing music and controlling the dynamic level of different instruments. So we're going to leave them at -0 and leave it at this too. And here we'll see it.
My business.
How do you use it for your business?
Well, with its internet capability, long-lasting
Reducing some level and also metering. So now we're getting between 0 and -6. That's kind of where we want to be. But I'm going to push a little bit more, and this is how it compresses. So if we add gain, we're bringing up all the low stuff more into this level and compressing stuff above -4 down and limiting so that it does not pass 0 at all. So we've squished the dynamic range even further by pushing the gain up and compressing and limiting down. So now we have kind of a very limited dynamic range here, and that's why it's called a compressor. It compresses the dynamic range. So if we hit the play button and
battery and tons of useful apps, presentations are so much easier.
How do your clients feel about this iPad?
They love it. It adds a ton of 21st century technology.
we're staying between -6 and 0, and that's actually a little bit too aggressive with the gain, so I'm going to just turn it down and maybe add just a touch.
In my business,
Can I see that?
the games are great to relax with too.
For advertising commercials, you do want it to be pretty gainy. For if you were mixing, let's say, classical music, you want to keep all that dynamic range, and you don't want to boost all the low stuff and push down all the high stuff. You want to kind of have like a full range of dynamics. So compression can be used in a bunch of different ways. For advertising, we all want to kind of stay in between 0 and -6, and you don't want to push it too hard because then it sounds bad. So I recommend playing with the compression and then dialing it back to get a more natural sound and getting it between 0 and -6. And then once we have that going on, everything is busing through our submix again, out to our master, and that's what we'll be exporting. So the last step is file, and not export AAF. We want an AIFF, and that's Command E or export. And here we would want to put it in our project folder and make sure it's an AIFF file and make sure we name it correctly. So we're a little bit later here, 42513, and I'll just call this final mix, and I would want to put my name on it. And then I'll hit export, and it's going to go through, and you'll see some metering going on here, and it actually happens faster than the commercial takes to play back. And then if you look in your Finder, it'll be where you placed it. So here we're seeing our final mix, and if I hit the spacebar,
Hey, look at my amazing new iPad.
What's an iPad?
This device I just got.
there's our 30-second radio commercial, and this is what you would upload to SoundCloud or what you would email your advertising client for final approval before they send it to the radio stations to play back.